What is happening, everybody? It is Trey here. I'm joined again by my dad, Sean, and today we are up to Led Zeppelin II, doing a detailed track-by-track review of that. It's our first time listen of it after listening to Led Zeppelin's debut album and our journey of going through their discography in a chronological order. And this is your first time joining reactions to the classics. We appreciate you. Here at the channel, we go back and look at the most classic albums of all time and do a detailed track-by-track review, put in a bunch of research, and like this album, most of the time it's our first time listen of the record. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. If you would like to connect with us some more, check out the Facebook link below. We have a good group there, as well as our Patreon page if you'd like to support us and get some exclusive content. We'll have a bonus video for this album as well. So all that to say, let's get into some quick facts.
Yeah, Trey, this is the second album for Led Zeppelin. This one was released in America on October 22nd, 1969, in the UK on October 31st, 1969, number 75 on the Rolling Stones Top 500 of all time. Actually went to number one in the US and UK. Their debut did not. And many critics years down the line now recognize this as one of the most influential albums of all time.
Yeah, and the production on this thing was handled entirely by Page.
Yes.
This time, of course, you got Page on lead guitar, Bonham on drums, John Paul Jones on bass and organ, and then Plant, again, much like the debut, also utilizes the harmonica a little bit in here as well.
Yeah, and this album is just, it's a lot of blues and a lot of guitar riff stuff, the stuff you would expect out of Zeppelin from the first album. They wrote 6 of the 9 songs. The other 3 were blues standards by Howlin' Wolf and Willie Dixon. The interesting thing about this album is they were touring for their debut album. They did 4 European tours, 3 North American tours, and they recorded this album while on those tours.
Yeah, talk about a busy time.
It's crazy. They would actually travel with the master tapes, and whenever they had a little time, as in hours between concerts, they would find a studio and they would record there. So that's one reason why Page being able to produce was vital to this album. One of the reasons why this album is looked back on as one of the greatest albums of all time is it's viewed as the quintessential heavy metal album. It's the forerunner for all the groups that would come later. And the reason why is this was just not done back then. The vocals take a secondary to the guitar riffs and the music, which is, which would set the stage. Heavy metal became a huge thing. And this also helped Led Zeppelin. I already said they were doing all these tours for the first album. On the first album, they were playing ballrooms, small arenas. Now, this is going to catapult them into doing big arenas, stadiums. All right, Trey, we get into the first track, Whole Lotta Love. This thing's ranked 75 on the Rolling Stones Top 500 songs of all time. It was also released as a single in America, quite successful, selling over 1 million copies. Not released in the UK. There was never a UK single release for Led Zeppelin, so that's quite interesting.
Yeah, and as you're going back to the singles, radios were looking to see, okay, what could we play that could really, put this album out.
Yeah, it's a big album, but there's no singles. It's kind of weird for radio.
So this Whole Lotta Love was the lead track contender for it, but a lot of stations didn't like the free-form part where they improvise there, where there's not the lyric. Atlantic Records sent the single, in the US and had the full version, but they also then to the radio station sent out an edited version with that middle part cut out. The lyrics deal very prominently with just love, sex, and the like, as a lot of this album does.
Yes.
And Plant's vocals are definitely on display here and kind of evoke that emotion, but I really did think the middle part of the song was interesting because about 2 minutes in, it just kind of goes into a free-form instrumental riff here, and then you get the bombastic. We go back into Plant's vocals, and Zeppelin does that a lot, I've noticed, where they go in, start with the chorus and verse, and then after one verse, then they break down for a few minutes instrumentally before hitting it back up.
Yeah, and that's what they're known for, so it's kind of weird on the edited single to take all that out.
Yeah, I agree.
The guys that are playing the instruments in Zeppelin are, for a large part, they are Zeppelin. That's what they're known for. Nothing against Plant by any means, but it's kind of weird to have to take that out, but that was radio in the late 60s in America, they wanted tracks that were 3 minutes or under, so it's kind of a shame. On that note, Page's guitar solo in this thing is ranked 38th by Guitar World and greatest guitar solos of all time.
And that takes us into what is and what should never be. And this is one of the first tracks that uses Page's signature Gibson Les Paul. And I just thought this was a unique song because it just, again, did the tempo shifts where, you know, Plant, I like the way Plant delivered his vocals. He can hit those high notes, but on this one, he's almost just kind of talking in most of the song, and then we go, he gets that energetic voice going, and then the drums come pounding in, and I just thought it was a nice dichotomy here.
This was also one of the first songs where Plant actually gets credit for his lyrics. With the Led Zeppelin original that we covered in our reaction to it, he was under contract with CBS, so even though he made contributions to a lot of the songwriting on Led Zeppelin, they couldn't credit it to him, so this is one of the first songs they could. On these lyrics, it's important to note that Plant wrote this, his then wife at the time, to her younger sister, Shirley, who he had a romance with, so it was written to her. So yeah, that's a little touchy. His wife at the time, Maureen, is going to get a song written to her in a couple tracks, so he had it all covered.
Yeah, he evened it out, yeah.
Yeah, it was nice of him. I liked the song. I thought it was really good. I know Whole Lotta Love is just held up so high. I actually might have liked this song even a little bit better. This takes into the Lemon song tray. This was inspired by Howlin' Wolf's Killing Floor, which is a track they played on their first concert tour for their debut album in most of their sets. And then their second and third concert tours, they kind of changed it and improvised the lyrics a little bit. Plant just kind of rolled with the flow.
This is about 6 minutes long. Great instrumentation here yet
Yes.
again. Again, very sexual song.
Very many are on here, as you noted earlier.
There's a line in there talking about, you know, squeezing the lemon till the juice runs down.
That's where you get the women song.
But that's taken actually from our man Robert Johnson.
Pops up in about every other video, guys.
Yeah, and that line was definitely inspired by him. And so again, the Led Zeppelin, hugely influenced by the blues guys, which I like. It's kind of cool because those blues guys really were the foundation of a lot of rock and roll. That's what you have in this song, and you know, Zeppelin making it their own. Great instrumentation here, talking about his woman. He does all he can to love her, and you know, yet at the end of the day, she just like leaves him in a sense at certain times and doesn't treat him right. But
he keeps going back because there's such an attraction there, he can't help it.
But yeah, I enjoyed this one.
All right, Trey, that brings us up to Thank You, which may be my favorite track on this whole album.
Mine too.
Oh, wow, okay. So we don't talk about this beforehand. Yeah. So it's interesting to me. It was actually the first song totally written by Plant, and a lot of biographies later on Zepp says that this is a song where Page realized he could kind of turn all of the songwriting over to Plant for the most part, and that he could handle it. And Plant wrote this one for his wife at the time, Maureen. So he had the younger sister covered 2 tracks ago. Now he gets to Maureen, so that was nice.
Yeah, got to cover all the bases, and this was very noted. To me, it just stood out, the John Paul Jones Hammond organ that's throughout here. Again, very light, a softer sound here than
very much so,
especially the Lemon song and Whole Lotta Love that we've already had up to this point. And I just enjoyed this, man. This was a nice rock ballad, I thought. Again, I liked Plant's lighter vocals here. I like whenever he can go up high and get rocking and energetic, but he also has that range where he can just sing softly and just go into a beautiful love song like this.
Yeah, that's my favorite part on it. You mentioned it. Plant really showcases his vocals, I think, better on this song, and just in my opinion, than any other song on either the debut or this album. And it is a true love song. The sexuality, as we already mentioned, is all throughout this thing, but this one is just a straight up love song, just an excellent effort. All right, now we're going to start off the B-side tray with Heartbreaker, ranked number 328th in the Rolling Stones top 500 songs of all time. Page wrote this mainly for himself to show off his guitar skills, and that he does, as it features a guitar riff by Page, a spontaneous unaccompanied solo that features several hammer-ons and pull-offs. That pull-offs is one of the trickiest guitar techniques there is. That got him ranked number 16th on the greatest guitar solos of all time.
This is your typical power rock song about a woman, possibly a prostitute, who broke this dude's heart. Fits well and transitions very nicely into the next track. And I just thought this, this solo here was great. This was Page's best work, in my opinion, on this record, and some of his best up to this date. Really like Dazed and Confused from the debut as well. Just one that I think has a legendary status for good reason.
And Trey, that takes us right into Living, Loving Maid. She's Just a Woman, and it's sometimes played spontaneously right through with Heartbreaker. It was released as a single in the US just because it was the B-side of Whole Lotta Love. It only went to number 65. It's said to be about a groupie that was stalking Zepp in their early days.
Yeah, and Page really doesn't like this song.
Hated this song.
He has said at multiple different occasions that this is his least favorite Zepp song, and they never performed this in concert at all, which is interesting, especially since they had, just 2 albums worth of material in those early concert days. So, and not a huge
Yeah, he
fan.
must have really hated it. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I thought it was a solid track. It would be towards the bottom on this record for me, but I didn't hate it or anything. It was just a nice. I like the background vocals a little bit too, and just the way the chorus was delivered in a quick manner. Living, loving, she's just a woman. So I thought that was pretty catchy here. One of the most catchy choruses on this record. So a solid track. Then we get into one of my favorite tracks, Ramble On. This is ranked number 440 on the Rolling Stones Top 500 songs of all time, and this thing is heavily influenced by The Lord of the Rings.
And this track starts out with Page's acoustic strumming, and Bonham, Trey, is patting out a rhythm. Now he's probably on his knees, possibly on a guitar case or a drum stool. No one even seems to recall. They just know it was different. Page explained later on that he achieved his smooth, sustaining, almost violin-like tone on the solo by using the neck pickup on his Les Paul, because Jimmy's always looking at ways he can make things different.
Plant here likens the journey that the band's on to find the one to the journey that Frodo and Sam in The Lord of the Rings were on.
To find the ring.
Yeah, to find the one
Interesting
ring.
way to
and both the journeys were taxing.
Yes.
Both of the journeys, were had enemies and travel on the way, essentially. So it's just nothing that you would you immediately think of when you think rock music, like, oh yeah, Lord of the Rings. But I thought it was pretty neat.
So just an excellent presentation all the way around.
And I like how it just kind of keeps rambling on the song almost as he's talking about, well, just gonna ramble on, and then we just go into the awesome chorus section, and I just thought that this one didn't overstay its welcome, and as you said, Sean, just a good track. And that's gonna take us into Moby Dick, the drum solo instrumental here, named after the novel. This was called Pat's Delight and Over the Top early on in Led Zepp's career. And Page put this together by catching Bonham jam in the studio, recording it over time, and just splicing it together to make this song. And I mean, this song is unbelievable. I'm not a drummer, but I can, you can just, greatness when you hear it. And it seems here that Bonham is has multiple beats going on at the same time, which just seems incredibly difficult to do, obviously, and just the way it all worked together here. Even you hear instrumental, sometimes you think, oh, that's probably just time to kill, filler and whatnot, but this is definitely not.
Yeah, we don't talk about Bonham nearly enough on either one of these reactions, but he is, almost by all accounts recognized as the greatest drummer of all time.
Yeah.
If you have a different take, I respect that, but he is incredible, and it's interesting that Page just caught him doing it. He had no idea that Page was recording him, so it's an interesting way to take this. And this thing would be played in concerts, and it would go upwards to 10 minutes, and sometimes, if you can believe this, as long as 30 minutes. And Bonham was famous for getting so into it. He pounds his drums so hard, it's why they have such a powerful sound, that he would break his drumstick sometimes on stage halfway through it. And instead of grabbing his extra drumsticks, he didn't want to take off from the rhythm, he would just throw them aside and play with his hands, which is insane. And they said sometimes he would play with his hands to the point of them being bloodied, and he would just keep going. That, Trey, is a man in love with his craft. Maybe a bit too much, but we are the beneficiaries of it. Trey, we're up to the last track, Bring It On Home. This was also written by Willie Dixon. The intro and the outro are exactly like his version. The middle was original to Zepp.
You know, this was a solid closer. This wasn't one of my favorites on the record.
It wasn't mine either. It's interesting to close the record this way, but everybody's got different philosophies on what to close with.
I did respect the tempo shifts again, and you know the musical differentiation within the song. I just thought, you know, there could have been another track on here or two that would have maybe been a better closer. You could have closed with even like the Lemon Song or Heartbreaker, but all in all, still I thought it was a solid track from the lads.
I agree. What was your favorite track?
Favorite track on here had to be Thank You, Whole Lotta Love, and Heartbreaker. I got to throw some love to Bonham here, Moby Dick as well.
Yeah, I'll kind of mirror those. I wouldn't argue with those at all. Now we get up to the point of what are you going to grade the overall album?
This was an interesting one because their debut was so good in my eyes. I didn't know how this one was going to be able to measure up. I still like the debut just a hair more than this, so I'm going to go with an 8.75 on this thing. A lot of really great tunes in here, and I wouldn't be surprised if I up that as I become more familiar with the record.
Yeah, I'm going to go with an 8.25 because it's such a quintessential album in the heavy metal genre. For respect out of that and the just extreme instrumentation that is just once again fundamental on this thing, I'm gonna have to go with an 8.25.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from them. We got Led Zeppelin III. I like it, man. They keep the title. It's easy for the first 4 records at least, and I'm already looking forward to Led Zeppelin IV. I know that's considered one of the best of all time. And as always, Sean, appreciate you doing the research. Always really fun to see some of the backstories on these records. And be sure, guys, to let us know what you think of Led Zeppelin II in the comment section below, and hit that big red subscribe button so you do not miss out on any of the videos that we upload. Until next time, y'all, happy listening, and we will see ya.